thanks and feelings of gratitude again to the organizing committee who did their best again to make this event happen. Mr. Muhsin and I had already thought of having something like this one long time ago. But I really would like also to share, a lot of thoughts and also experiences with you. Unfortunately, what I have here is too much, to be honest. Yeah, it's too much. Just the title can tell. So we'll talk about thinking first, thinking skills, critical thinking skills, integrating critical thinking skills, culture, exploration of culture, teaching culture. So that's a lot. You see that? And that requires, of course, a lot of time. But at the same time, I'll be really kind of very concise and focus again on things that are going to help you as would-be teachers, knowing on my experience as also a teacher of English, as a teacher trainer, and also as an administrator. So I have had the chance again to see different aspects again of teaching and education. And what we're going to do today is special in the sense that it's really very rare that we address issues like culture, teaching culture, and so using critical thinking skills, right? So the first thing that's going to come next is making our thinking visible. See that? So what does that imply when you see something like this one? How can we make our thinking visible?
Write it down.
Write it down. Good. Speak.
Share it.
Sharing.
Verbalize our thoughts.
Verbalizing our thoughts.
Thinking aloud.
Thinking aloud, right, okay. Miss. Drawing conclusions, good.
Teaching it.
Teaching, right. Teaching it, right, okay.
Voicing our ideas.
Voicing, good. Voicing out our ideas, why not?
Drawing as we did previously.
Right, drawing. That's also a means of, for example, expression, right?
Writing journals. Writing journals.
Writing journals, good, okay, yes?
Compare and contrast.
Right, comparing and contrasting, good. So all these ideas are really kind of good ideas. But to what extent then, the things that we do are really critical? To what extent then that we try and prove, for example, our assumptions, about things? And to what extent we really succeed in including and incorporating again these things, these thoughts in our everyday teaching? That is again why I'm here. I'm trying to explore with you again different aspects again of language teaching and how we can integrate that, of course, into the textbook that we do have here. So we'll have then a chance to discuss this bit by bit. So here I'm going to be quite quick here, so it's just about the workshop highlights and then the workshop objectives. We'll have a chance to talk about that. But I'm going to try and have a slide here which is about culture. First, before we can delve, of course, into what is culture, you have got a document that is about critical thinking. Okay, spend this few minutes and I want to try and voice out those feelings that you have about what is critical thinking. Start with your assumptions first about what is critical thinking. Go ahead. You've got a few minutes, please. You can each one just have one idea, then you jot it down. You've got a document, please. Yes?
We don't have.
Yeah, it's here. Those who don't, I still have, please, extra copies. We'll start from your assumptions then. Try to be as quick as possible, please. We have just 2 minutes from now. Keywords, right?
Students back there, they were actually.
It's okay, guys. And the next one. When they finish, when it's over. Okay, when it's over. I'll give you a sign, right? Is that okay, please? Is that over? Okay. Can I have your input, please, about this? What is it then that comes to your mind when you talk about then critical thinking? Your assumptions about that? Yes. Inquiry. That's a good word. Process. Right. Analysis. Right. Reflecting, right. Interpreting. Evaluating. Constructive criticism, that's a big word. Inquiry, right? Assumptions. Reflecting has already been said. Out of the box. Scrutiny, right? Problem solving. Thinking process. Making connections. Deep look into something. Questioning. Same idea, good. Right, okay. Prior knowledge. Comparing, good. It looks like an auction house who says that thing is going to be about culture then. So what comes again to our minds when we think about culture? Remember that things are integrated today, okay? Traditions. Beliefs. Values. Right. Okay, good. Practices. Customs.
The best that has been taught and said in the world.
Sorry?
The best that has been taught and said in the world.
That's too philosophical. I'm sorry? Religion? Maybe? You're not sure about that? Okay. Thoughts, right. Ah, thoughts, yes, good. Ideologies. Heritage. Behaviors.
What is that name?
You should be the last one to recap what you had to say. Yeah. Okay, good. Right.
Red lines.
Red lines, borders, all that you have just said. Okay, it's about communication, it's about policies, about rituals, about roles, customs, relationships, practices, expected behaviors, values, thoughts, and manners, of course, of interacting. Now, this is good. That means to maybe know about culture is something, but to be able again to teach those cultural components is something which is completely different, right? Okay. Oftentimes we face, that means, the challenge of the people that we are teaching. So whether really they know about their culture first, and this is of course a big challenge, because most of the time the people are interacting with, they don't know many things or many aspects about their culture. So how would you like to try and make them compare if they don't have the benchmark, if they don't have the standard, if they don't have the reference to which they can compare things? Okay. All right. Now let's move up again. As you can see over here, okay, that shows again what is teaching culture. So now that we talked about critical thinking, and I know now about your assumptions, we talked about culture. So teaching culture, what is it then? What is it?
First, it's making people aware of their own cultures.
Learners.
Yes.
Remember, please, that the context we are working on is teaching, that means people English. You see, that's the language, right? We're talking about learners right now. So how can we teach learners culture? Yeah.
Integrating the Indian curriculum in addition to the normal one that's already assigned.
Yes.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Somebody else? But of course, that's successful to try and convey those kind of messages, right? Okay, so that's good to be a little bit also problematic. Yes?
I believe that teaching culture takes place by adopting an intercultural learning approach, which it has some implications and techniques and content. For example, teaching explicit and implicit cultural content, critical cultural incidents, case studies, imaginary or even real life scenarios to give to students to reflect on.
Okay, okay, good. But what should we as teachers take into consideration while picking up those kind of aspects of teaching culture there? What should we take in consideration?
Being aware that the students are very connected to their culture in order to not lose it in front of another.
That is one condition, good.
Age.
Age, that's also something.
Have the prejudice and stereotypes that they have about other cultures.
Yeah, but remember again that the words, for example, that she has been saying, they are really kind of true, and do understand, but do our students have this kind of knowledge base to permit them again to try and... Exactly, the cognitive level, because not everything, you cannot teach everything about culture, and that you have all the time to adjust and develop an activity which is going to be based on the knowledge of a particular country. Right now, our students or our learners, they use a lot, technology a lot, okay? And some of them are techie nerds. So what I can do is that, for example, I say develop a kind of brochure to try and discover other countries, and have, of course, those kind of culture, or what calls cross-cultural dimensions, like picking up things from history, from geography, from language, and having it develop develop, for example, let's say you want to sell your country or you want to sell your city, then what are those kind of places of interest that these people are going to try and come and visit? So that could be something that they can do with the help, of course, and you make them also use their mobile phones because their life right now is centered around the mobile phone. So these are good, but I say that we have also to take into consideration a lot of aspects before we can take the risk of teaching, of course, cultural access. Yes, please.
Just to add, I think that teaching often involves two different big components, which is knowledge or the raw data about the culture, as well as skills, and which are equally important. Because not every culture is visible. It can be taught accessible.
Yeah.
The skill that comes from its importance is to allow students to assess, compare, evaluate, and then they can be like autonomous learning through.
Definitely. Definitely. What's going to come also is going to show us again why do we need. So when I say then teaching culture is trying in fact to try and integrate or incorporate cultural elements in our everyday teaching practices, okay? That's something that of course we can use, not only all the time through the textbook, because sometimes textbooks do not reflect again what it is or what point is really of interest to us and responds to the needs of our learners so that we can teach them something. We cannot teach people things that they don't know about or they don't like, for example. So try and pick up what aspects of this culture they first like, and then I can, of course, and put them either into the form of tasks or activities. Okay, now activities and tasks to integrate, for example, and incorporate as part, of course, of cultural elements. Cultural exchange presentations, okay? Cultural artifacts exhibition, AI, which is right now into the trend, okay? So AI-powered cultural recipe exploration. Somebody talks about food. That's again one of the best things that we can do. Right now people can just browse, for example, the internet to different types of social media, and then they can get different types of recipes, and they can overwrite, for example, they can use, for example, say Mexican, for example, let's say dish, and the next morning it's going to be Italian, or then it's going to be, for example, an American, or it's going to be Thai or whatever. So that's going to be something which is also going to be good. Then cultural storytelling, okay, we can also pick up, you see, from, for example, the culture, any kind of story that could be taught, and maybe you can also get some kind of message from. Cultural music and dance workshops, we can also find them also through AI, that's also possible. Cultural comparison projects, so many people then have been talking of comparing, for example, things that we do, for example, elsewhere, and compare, of course, to our own culture, and that could be also of an advantage. But at the same time, be careful, please, about the key word about this is adaptation and adjustment. Do not pick up ready-made things from the internet and use them. That's an advice I'm telling you, please. Okay, so in my experience, a lot of people, oftentimes, teachers that I have graduating from my teacher training facilities, sometimes they pick up ready-made activities, say it's ready. The next morning they'll be using that. That is totally insane. Okay, because that kind of task actually has been made for some people. What it means, taking into consideration an age group, language awareness, taking also the challenges, again, the prior knowledge that we keep all the time talking about how we can connect to see prior knowledge again to the new knowledge. So do not please pick up ready-made, that means activities from the internet, and use them the next day. So give yourself the thought to try and see how you can adapt and adjust that. It's good. The core, that means of that kind of activity is going to be good, that's for sure. But please adapt it so that it suits your students and your learners, okay? Be it, for example, in terms of with regards again to the language level or any other aspect. So use that, please, as a key currency to you, because that's, of course, important, please, in this type of which activities. Okay, and 7 then, interactive cultural, that means tours. This is very important, like having use AI virtual reality experiences to transport students to historical landmarks or cultural celebrations around the world. So that's something that I can do. So nobody can tell me now it's not, it's possible. You can just have your laptop, you have an internet connection, you've got a data show, you can project. So I can show them different types of landmarks around the world. I can show them different types of outfit or clothing for different cultures. I can show them, for example, dishes. I can show a lot by using that, of course, AI-powered, of course, those kind of presentations. Okay, now, to the next thing then is going to be why teach culture. Now we talked about what is culture, okay, right? How we can teach it, and why do we need to teach it? What's the purpose?
I think as English learners, in order to learn the language better, we should know where did it come from, or how did the people in that country view it. So,
okay, I'm going to try and maybe word again my question another way. What use is going to be, that means to my learners, if I teach them culture? What's that kind of added value that's going to try and bring these kind of learners? What is if I teach culture and if I don't teach culture? Let's see these two boundaries there. What might happen? Yeah.
oh, actually, my point culture and British culture, this is the semester. We mentioned the concept of ethnocentrism.
Things in culture, you're confusing.
Yes, I feel like
Yes.
we learned this
With me.
Yeah.
Actually, teaching culture really helps to be good of that concept because we always think that our culture is the best. And we try to always stick to our culture, and it's good when in one side, and the other side it is bad because we are not going off our mind to enhance and get other people's culture and to understand how they live and how they think. I think this is a good going on the process of learning American and British culture. I've really learned how to take the good and think critically about the things that I found that they are not good for me.
But getting rid of bias, that's what yes.
You are saying something that you have to be really careful about. Is never, ever say that something is good about the culture or bad about the culture. That is important. If we are to learn something today, culture is culture.
Yeah.
Is that okay? Yes.
And one other thing about learning about other countries is that you come to value your own culture. Kind of process.
That's it. That's it. That's it. Yeah. But remember, please, my question should be a little bit narrowed down. All the time when I'm talking from the perspective of the learner. See, not for yourself. What you have been telling us is about your experience with culture.
Yes.
Is that okay? I'm talking about the learner. Remember, we're teaching teenagers. You see that? So what's going to be the add value again? Teaching them something like this one, right? Okay? Yes, please?
Teaching culture is actually an added value because, let's say when it comes to our culture, our mother culture, a lot of us just know our culture, but we're not cognizant of it. We just do things in our life that we have never questioned it.
Mm-hmm.
So teaching culture in the class gives us the time to reflect and question things that we do without even knowing what.
You are talking from the perspective of a teacher? Who is doing the reflection here?
Learner.
Okay, I was going to say, teaching culture, we reflect about that. So it's you who is reflecting? Okay, and about the learners? Do you think they have the ability to reflect on these things, on these issues, on these matters?
This is the purpose of this is the goal of the teacher in the class.
Right.
Helping them to reflect on their own culture.
Right, thank you. Yeah.
I think for a learner, they may not know or be knowledgeable about the importance of learning about their culture or others.
Okay.
So as a teacher, I think that it is very crucial to be in their shoes, understand the importance of teaching them culture.
Okay.
Not only it is very crucial to know your culture.
Okay.
Be open toward other cultures.
Okay.
But also and awareness about their own cultures and the others. So
Okay.
I think as a teacher we should.
Okay, I promise I'll have time to talk about that so that we don't take you see a lot of time, but we are going to share this, okay, for sure, okay? Right, okay, so first, why teach culture? Because it gives us a feeling of being more comfortable and safe with these differences later in life. You've got people right now that you're teaching as learners, but remember again that these kids that you are teaching today may have the chance again to try and travel, for example, say elsewhere, and they would be experiencing these. So if they know about this right now, it's going to avoid them what? Cultural shock. Good, thank you. Is that okay? So you are laying, please, the foundations and the basis of how they can later on in later life stages, maybe they are going to experience this. And oftentimes people then have been into the misfortune of not dealing with greeting. You see that? So greetings then, as you know, so there are what you call as being those kind of space dynamics. So we call for example, when you are, or proxemics, for example, let's say, that when you want to talk to somebody, for example, let's say from a foreign context, be it, for example, in the US, that you should stand at an arm's length. Do not try and take the risk to be closer, because that's a violation of the personal space. So So what I have also experienced throughout also my career, and I've seen on many occasions when teachers, especially in school practicums, when they start teaching, and they tell kids, for example, to try and have greetings. This is very simple and the basic things. I have seen many times again teachers telling the kids, prepare them for a dialogue and say, okay, good morning, my name is Ahmed, my name is Busha, how are you doing today? I'm okay. How old are you? And teacher praising, excellent. So good morning, how are you? What's your name? My name is Ahmed, and you? My name is Busha, okay. How are you today? I'm fine, thanks, and you? I'm really okay. Okay, how old are you? I'm 12 or I'm 13. Now, do we really face these situations in real life like these ones? No. That is also we have to be with. That's part again of culture. What if that person experienced the same thing in another country? What would be there? That would be the reaction again of that foreigner to him, or he's not a foreigner, he's going to be native, because you are going to be the foreigner there. So what's going to be the reaction there? It's a shock. We don't ask rude questions like these, asking, for example, see people and just very simple greeting. See that? Or sometimes it's also about the way you stand. So be careful again. We talked please about proxemics, but at the same time, I have seen also on many occasions teachers teach, and then they prepare, for example, the students for what you call a role play or a simulation. And then when they come, for example, on stage to perform, so you have people talking and say, good morning, how are you today? I'm fine, thank you. And you? So one then is talking, and you can see there is interaction, but one is either facing the ceiling, and the other one is looking again for the answers to the questions. But never have I ever seen, for example, somebody who is going to have a social, appropriate situation where people can interact. So what teachers do, and I want you to avoid that, is do not have to worry all the time about language per se. The context is also very important. That's part of culture. The context where that exchange happens is also equally important, please. So those are little things, those are details, but those are details that count, because you are not going to feel that here. But once you're going to be, of course, in a foreign context, that's going, of course, to count. Now, people are going to try and have this. So we talked then about what you guys mean proxemics. Let's talk about haptics also in linguistics. Is that we are supposed to be from a very warm culture, like also the South America, also in Africa. And then we tend to, for example, say greet people, shaking hands, and then have big hugs. So what if you do that kind of big hug? How would people interpret that? That is also culture. That's why we need again to teach those kind of culture components, so that we can be comfortable, but at the same time safe and do not have a kind of misinterpretation, although our intentions are really good. Does that make sense, please? Yes. Right, good, okay.
So this is included in the common context group.
It's not about included or not, it's about the way you do things. A lot of things are included on the internet, on the textbooks, but how well the teacher is going to try and transfer, pick up things here and then use them. Teachers are, and that's experience that I'm sharing with you here, they are all the time worrying about how I'm going to plan the lesson, about time management, which activity, but he does not care about the context where these things are going to happen. And this is, of course, the big mistake here.
That's the problem of teaching the textbook.
Different, that's it. That's true. Okay, so again, it's about how you can try and get, of course, ideas and then transfer and use, of course, with your kids. Okay, allow me to go quickly, please, here, Nate. So interacting again in a wider range of social groups and feeling more confident, because that gives you confidence. Now, in this way, we can talk about macro culture and micro culture. I'm not going to go here because that's, again, another field here. But again, sometimes, remember that also inside same institution, you keep moving from one microculture to another. Sometimes you have to try and adjust yourself to fit in, or are you going to be rejected? Is that okay?
In Morocco, for example, you have subcultures, okay, and teachers are future teachers will be assigned somewhere different from your own subculture.
Definitely.
You need to be aware of that. Okay?
That is something we should be.
I taught in Lyon in Sahara.
Yeah, it's completely different. So teaching in Lyon is not like teaching in Husseima, or not teaching like in Tangier, they're not teaching in Tawnat or in Dakhla. So we have also to be aware of these things here. So those guys. So what it is that is required on your part so that you can fit in and adjust again to a different culture. Okay? Right. Now that you have figured this out, moving on to the next part, which is about what are thinking skills. I'm not talking about critical thinking skills. Because we need to understand what thinking skills are to be able to talk about critical thinking skills. You cannot persuade other people if you are not yourself persuaded or convinced. So what are thinking skills? Questions. Thinking. Remembering.
Cognitive ability.
Cognitive abilities, right.
All these lots of reasoning.
Reasoning.
Logical assessment.
Logical assessment, that you say, yes?
Brainstorming.
Brainstorming.
To break down the information into small components.
Break down the information into small components. Yes, good, right?
Evaluating.
Evaluating, right, okay. Isn't that about critical thinking skills? Because some people told me that word when I asked about critical thinking skills. Okay, let's try and see that. Thinking skills are, in fact, those cognitive processes that we use to solve problems, make different decisions, asking questions, making plans, organizing, and creating information. Those are really critical thinking skills. They are thinking skills because you need to learn them. It's a skill. Is that okay? So things do not happen like that. It's a process. And then it needs time, of course, to try and have that kind of process adjusted. Good. Okay. Now, everybody is familiar with Bloom's taxonomy, right? Okay? I guess everybody knows about that. Now we are narrowing down so that we can get, of course, what critical thinking are about. Now, up till now, I did not bring this issue of, that means Bloom's taxonomy, regarding, of course, those kind of skills or thinking skills. But the most important thing I'm going to highlight over here is that in our Moroccan textbooks, from, let's say, the time that we have been, of course, designing textbooks into the classroom, people have not been pushed, or let's say learners have not been pushed further, to think further. So what we can see as basic, we started here, like at remembering and understanding. And most activities that you can see in textbooks, they do have that kind of little push to push the kids over here, remembering and understanding. And then we haven't seen clearly any tasks or activities that are going to try and require the people to try and move on to the next step, applying, analyzing, evaluating, or even creating. And again, if you do not, because sometimes what happens, and please again, this is another advice I'm giving you here, you should not underestimate your students. You see that? If you are able again to take them and then push them a little bit higher, they'll do that. If you just keep them thinking, it's like the fish and tree. So just make a fish believe that's going to climb a tree, it's going to spend, or it's like you see climbing the tree. So you need again to try and push those little things to go a step further. It's not again to stay at those basic level, means the remembering stage and understanding stage. Okay, now coming back again to the next idea over here, applying, again, what you call as being Bloom's taxonomy, getting into things like apply, evaluate, understand, analyze, and create. I do have these documents that are printed here. I will share them with you, of course, once the presentation is over. You are going to get copies for these ones, okay? So, what is critical thinking? Since we have just, of course, talked about that. And basically, again, if you remember, the copy that we shared, of course, at the beginning. So, critical thinking is a kind of thinking in which you question, you analyze, you interpret, you evaluate, and make a judgment about what you read, hear, say, or write. The term critical comes from the Greek word kritikos, meaning able to judge or discern. So again, if you try and see this image, that comes exactly, means in line with what you have, of course, said at the beginning, of course, of this presentation. Right. Okay. Now, critical thinking then can be also, or questions that can be used, for example, to, I'm going to try and summarize that here. You cannot see that, but I'm going to show you something here. It's about the ways how you can do that, for example, okay, in our is teaching. I'm really sorry because the lighting, okay, is not good, but I do have also these in copies. You'll get copies here, okay? So instead of having, for example, our students, remember, my presentation is based on the learners. Is that okay? I'm talking about the learners. So instead of having, for example, let's say kids say something like, I don't understand, the question should be formulated in this way. What am I missing? Is that okay? If I go on here, I give up, right? So if I use some of the strategies that I have learned, that could be, of course, better, rather than say, I give up or I stop. I made a mistake here. Is that okay? So here, mistakes are a sign that I'm learning. This is too hard. This may take some time and effort. It's good enough. Is this really my best work? So you are trying again and make first your learners have confidence about their own learning before you can talk about those critical thinking skills. So if you have them shift their thoughts about their way of learning, that's going to help you also show them how they can think critically about what it is that's going to serve them, which is part, of course, of the input. I've got also these, okay, so that I'm going to be, I'm sorry, this is it, okay? So have a look at this one. So again, this is too hard, right? This effort, but I'll eventually, of course, get it. I give up, it's good enough, I always make mistakes, and plan A didn't work. Good thing, the alphabet, for example, has 25 letters and so on. Okay, we're going to try and have something which is also out of experience, but you try and use, of course, those kind of critical thinking skills. Good. Now, in our again context in Morocco, and this is important, Jane, we shared something here because you talked to me about reading. Reading skills here, you see that there is all the time one goal, which is that we try and teach our learners to try and focus on one goal, which is finding the answer to the comprehension questions and praising the students when they find that kind of information. You see, so it's a sign of relief that the teacher then is going to try and show us when there are students that are raising their hands, say, I got the answer. Okay, the teacher does not take it a step further to try and have them or question them. That means about, of course, what it is that they have found, of course, as an answer. No consideration about the implications what students are reading. We do not even question. Your major concern as a teacher is that they found the right answer. But the implications of what it is that they read, in terms of culture, in terms of whatever, you don't really question yourself about that. And here it's going to try and make us join what has been the reflexive teaching. How you can reflect on the way you are teaching things, rather than just and serve ready-made recipes or those kind of spoon-feeding things, okay? So we need again to try and reflect on these things. Right, next, no critical thinking, of course, is going to be involved over here, right? To what extent now, the reading materials we use in class address critical thinking skills? Going on my experience, because I've been teaching for a long time, hardly ever have I ever seen, means for example, let's say reading text or an activity that's going to try and enhance and foster those kind of critical thinking skills. Why? Because first, we seem to have only one way of doing things. And it seems to me that our teaching in general, I'm going to compare that. Everybody is familiar with geometry, yeah? So it's like our teaching is like a cylinder, for example. You know what a cylinder is? And whatever shape you have should go through that cylinder. You are a triangle, please shift to go through this one. Is that okay? You are a square, you have to go through this one, so you have to be a cylinder to move on to this one. Is that okay?
One size fits all.
Exactly. That's the little problem. The little problem that we have is that education or teaching does not adapt to our learners' needs. We make our learners to adapt to one way of teaching. And that's the big mistake. Because we are making people believe that is one way of doing things. There are not, of course, different ways. So we are not recognizing differences. And when you are not recognizing differences, then you cannot, of course, ask them again to come up. You are making that everybody, like what he said, thank you for this, it's one size fits all. It means you are not really recognizing those kind of differences. You are not recognizing lifestyle, diverse learning styles that people, for example, have within your classroom. And if you do not have this, then you cannot talk about critical thinking or also fostering critical thinking skills. Right. Now, if we try and see, for example, just one activity here I'm going to share with you quickly. So beginners, I can choose, for example, let's say when I'm dealing with an activity with them, I say, choose a response from a list of options, like this story makes me feel happy, sad, bored, or interested. I really like or don't like, I really dislike this story because, given a reason for, of course, your own choices, right? To an intermediate level, that would be something, I like the part where. And you have to ask, of course, the guy, why did he like that kind of part? Advanced, more thorough and free response. How do you feel about this story? Give 2 reasons why. But again, this activity also has a challenge. And I'm going to show you also the challenge. So the challenge is that some of these tasks that are not going to be completely successful because for each kind of challenge, we have a solution to that. What if, again, my students hesitate to share their true opinion about something? Okay? Now, another way I can make them, of course, shift that kind of thinking is saying, have students write down their ideas before sharing, because some of them would like, of course, to speak, or they would be unwilling, or they would be, for example, hesitating. So have the students, of course, write down their kind of ideas here. Have students share in pairs or small groups. You know the think, pair, and share? Right, okay? What if students say that no part of the reading is interesting? What if the student, that means the content that you are really kind of exposing is not something of value? So again, ask students why it isn't interesting. Ask them also what could make the next or the text more interesting. So by doing this, you are giving them a chance, you are listening again to, and at the same time understand their needs and have them also have their say in the way that you are, of course, doing things, rather than you dictating material, okay? And last one, students say they didn't learn anything from the text. Ask them to identify a new word or phrase from the text and challenge them. So I'm going to be sharing this. I've got documents. You are going to get, of course, copies of these, and please do use them, okay? Don't just pick them and put them in a pile. Do use them, please. Right. Okay, facts and opinions. That's one of the things that we need also to try and have our students distinguish. Is that okay? And for this one, we need to work on something. I'd like to please to try and, yeah, that's the next activity over here. Can somebody please share this one? I'm giving you different things over there. It's okay. They've got it. Thank you.